Welcome to Integrity Inspire, your daily dose of inspiration and motivation, featuring the bright and talented members of the Integrity Marketing Group family. Now, here's your host, Integrity co-founder and CEO, Brian W. Adams.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today's Inspire podcast. I'm so excited to be back with you and have another incredible partner joining the Integrity family. This is another one of these incredible announcements that we're bringing in another amazing partner that can help us even grow and serve more people. And I'm super excited to be joined today by Arric Allen, the founder and CEO of Allen & Associates. They have really built an incredible business, really serving people in the South, especially and around the country, frankly, with their Medicare benefits. And this is an incredible honor to have you here with us today. Welcome to the Integrity family. We're super excited to finally be able to have this announced.
I am so glad to be here, Brian. That was a beautiful introduction as well.
Oh, man.
You just don't know how excited I am. This is wonderful. In fact, this is a defining moment for me, not just for me, for my wife, for the rest of the team with Allen & Associates. Man, we're just excited to be here. So.
Man, I appreciate that. I remember when I first met you and Tony Holland brought you in the office. I was like, man, we got to figure out how we can partner together. And we got a lot in common. You grew up in Mississippi. I grew up in West Texas. But where I grew up is cotton country. Now, you grew up where it's really cotton country.
Yes.
And tell us about where you grew up, man.
Well, I grew up in Greenwood, Mississippi. Now, the claim of fame to Greenwood is that it's the cotton capital of the world.
Yeah.
So when you're driving into Greenwood on Highway number 7, you see the sign, Greenwood Cotton, welcome Greenwood Cotton Capital of the world. So that's the claim of fame. And so, that's my roots. I chopped cotton. I worked on the farm for years with my granddaddy. And so, I'm used to hard work. And I think hard work have molded me to be the person I am today, to be honest with you.
So where I grew up, it's cotton everywhere as well. So out in West Texas, Panhandle of Texas, there's something beautiful about cotton. I really believe.
Yeah.
It's not like maybe some other crops that people get excited about in some ways, but I mean, it's the fabric of America, literally.
Absolutely.
And you see all the cotton out in the fields. And I remember the first time I took my wife out to West Texas, and she just saw these white fields everywhere. And then, it was harvest season, so the gins were operating. I'm sure it was like this with where you grew up. The gin dust, the gin dust is a real thing because it's literally dust from the cotton fibers all over it, and then this blowing out into the area. And then everything, it looks like it just snowed all around a cotton gin, which is crazy. But so you actually chopped cotton.
I chopped cotton. I had to. It wasn't my granddaddy. It was non-negotiable. In fact, I earned my money to buy school clothes and school supplies. So it was just a routine of life for me.
So what if you're not from a rural area like we are? Chopping cotton is where you walk down the rows it's a row crop. Cotton's a row crop. You walk down the rows and you're weeding. You're chopping. You got a hoe and you're trying to chop the weeds to get the weeds away from it so that it doesn't steal the sunlight from the cotton. And then they advanced to that where they had these spray rigs. So when I was growing up, you still have people out, we called it either chopping cotton or hoeing cotton, where you'd be out there and you'd try to, hoe the weeds. I never did that. That is like hard work.
It is hard work.
And it's hot. But then they came out with these like spray buggies. You remember the spray buggies?
I do.
Where they had little seats. They had a little seat like this on a tractor. And there'd be, 6 or 8 of us, people sitting on the seat. And you'd have a spray wand. You have a big, 1,000-gallon spray rig.
Absolutely.
And you'd be spraying the weeds and going through it. And that was kind of the cool thing to do when I was growing up in West Texas. If you could sit on one of those spray buggies, that was a big deal. Man.
Absolutely. My brother did that a lot, my younger brother, but I had to do the grunt of the work.
That's a hard work, yeah. And then they kind of, now, so my best friend Bubba, I talk about Bubba, he's a big cotton farmer now. Now they've got the big spray rigs. His company's got 2 aerial sprayers where they spray and all of the things with some of the different, inventions and innovations that have happened in cotton. But man, that growing up in those areas for me, first of all, I never knew anything different, right? But there's something simple, there's something amazing being around just so many great people that want to help people out. If there's an issue with a family member, man, people rally around and support each other. And I just love kind of that rural nature of America in so many ways.
Absolutely. It was a community. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was family, and we pitched in and helped one another. So
Yeah.
I love that. Those people are the salt of the earth.
So I remember a story you were telling also about how you got, speaking of family, how you got into the insurance business. Is your cousin introduced you to the insurance business, right? Tell us about that.
He did. My cousin, he's much older than I am. And of course, this was back in the early 90s. And he's from Chicago. So one particular summer, he came down to, we had a family reunion. And I didn't know much. I hadn't met this guy, really. Didn't know much about him. But he was tall, put together well, dressed well.
Kind of like you.
Well, he was better than I am. But he drove up in a candy apple red Mercedes-Benz. Now, this was before the movie Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. And so I literally, and I think they stole that line from me. I literally asked this guy, I said, what you do for a living? And I want to do it. If it's legal, teach me what you do for a living. And so he went on and told me he sold insurance and encouraged me to get into the business. And one thing he said that stuck with me, he said, you might be successful and be able to live the lifestyle that I'm living. I said, oh. So that was my introduction to the insurance business right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you got into the insurance business, and you were, if I remember, you were running a debit route, right?
Yep.
Now, some people don't remember what a debit route was.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, a debit route, it was twofold responsibility. You had to sell and you had to collect.
You had to collect your premium.
You had to collect your monthly premium. And believe it or not,
this is back before you had bank drafts. Like people,
absolutely,
you couldn't bank draft.
There was no ordinary
there was no
back
then. And people weren't mailing bills really, right? I mean, that's kind of what came after it. But debit route was, you literally had to go knock on the door and going, hey, I need to collect this week's premium.
You did, and that's what I did. That's how I started off in the business. And not only Brian collected monthly premium, but I also had to collect weekly premium.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember one client, I had to collect 50 cents every single week. Drive and collect 50 cents at her house every single week.
Wow.
That was my introduction to the business, to
wow.
the debit. And I tell anybody, it was the best thing that could happen to me because I learned how to deal with people.
Yeah.
I learned how to take rejection, and I learned how to sell.
Well, hearing you say that, and that, I never worked in a debit route. I did work door to door selling insurance in the early days, which is totally different than a lot of times today. People able to sell over phone and Zoom and just the opportunities we have in so many different areas. I was in rural West Texas, and you just go and just door knock, right? Which is what you were doing, I'm sure. The interesting thing about a debit route is, I think today, a lot of times people sell somebody a product and they try to get out of the house before they change their mind, right? You know what I'm saying? And the thing about a debit route is you have to resell that every week or every month whenever you go back to them, because you got to say, now, Ms. Smith, you need this insurance, remember? And I need to collect my 50 cents or whatever it was, which is such a different skill than what most of us know today, where you sell a client, you move on, but you were building deep, lasting relationships with these clients. I mean, these became family for you.
Yes, and I think that's the key to the business, staying in touch with your client, and that's what the debit afforded me to do. And not only that, but it also gave me opportunity to sell even more product to the same person.
Right.
Yeah. So I tell anybody, that was the best decision I made to go and work for a debit or home service company.
Look, I think that this is, this business is such a relationship business. And if you have your heart set on serving the people the right way, then it opens up all these other opportunities. And that's where I think that had to be so valuable for you and for anybody who worked in that environment, to be able to keep building that relationship and saying, oh, now, Ms. Smith, I need to talk to you about this other opportunity. And I know you've done just incredibly at that on how you've kind of opened new doors to help serve people. Now, we talked a little bit about your agricultural background and growing up around a farm. How do you think that helped you also become successful in this business?
Well, again, I wasn't a stranger to hard work.
Yeah.
And And of course, running that debit or run home service, that's hard work as well. And it teaches you how to relate to people and how to really communicate with people. And so, to me, I love dealing with people in a way, especially the senior market, because they're the most underserved group out there. They need the most help, and I just love helping the seniors out. So it felt natural, even though it was hard work. My heart was into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, and the other part is after you've gone and worked on a cotton farm. I remember, and my dad talks about this all the time. He grew up on a cotton farm. My grandparents, I'm sure my dad, back in those days, they'd pick cotton. They carry the big old bag, behind them, and they would literally pick it until their fingers bled. I've got pictures of my grandmother doing that, where they'd pick the cotton and put it in the bag. And these kids were doing this like 5, 6 years old.
Absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine that? It was crazy. Kids think they have it tough today, man. That was tough. Growing up, my dad would be like, well, at least this is better than walking down a row of cotton and working. It makes you really appreciate what you have. Now, speaking of kids, I think we've also got something in common. Now, you have a huge heart about giving back and philanthropy. And it was started really by something that happened with your family and your daughter in particular. Tell us that story.
Yes. And sometimes I get emotional about this, Brian, so, forgive me if I do. But 12 years ago, me and my wife was expecting, and of course, at the mark 23 and a half weeks, she went into labor. 23 and a half weeks. She didn't even make it 24, which they said that's the minimal that you should make at least 24, 25 weeks. And not only that, the baby was breech. The baby came out breech. And I never felt that feeling. And so when my child was born, she was born 1 pound and 7 ounces. Within a couple of days, she dropped to 1 pound and 2 ounces. And so the doctors, they did what they can. We was in the hospital for about a little over 3 months. And so I guess we had been in the hospital for about a month. And the doctors came and they had a consultation with us. And they just basically put it out on the table. And this is what they said. They said, we have done all that we could. There's nothing else we can do. And I remember one of the doctors said, if she survived, and it would be a miracle if she did, but if she survived, she would have major health problems as well as Down syndrome. And I looked at my wife, and it looked like the spirit just left her body. Wow. Right. And so I realized at that moment that I had to be a protector for the family. And I also realized that circumstances doesn't change responsibility, because I still had to go out and provide for my family, even though we was going through that ordeal. And so, we prayed a lot. Yeah. Most of our friends, family, they prayed for us. My wife decided she didn't want to feed my child the formula milk that they give you. And so what she did, she started pumping, and then they would put it, she had a feeding tube down her nose. Oh, yeah. And that's what she did. And little by little, this child started to just fill out, full of life. Somebody told me at that particular point that in every adversity, there's a greater blessing behind it. Because I didn't, my mind was I'm stuck on the issues, the problem that we're having right now. Well, the blessing was 3 months later, we walked out that hospital. And today, my daughter is 12 years old. She'll be 12 years old next month. Not one health issue. Perfectly fine. And the doctor said it's a miracle, to be honest with you. And so, but when we was up there, we wasn't the only one that was dealing with a situation like that. Yeah. And so looking at these nurses, we was able to take our child home. But these nurses and doctors, they had to come to that environment every single day. And just watching these nurses pour into these children, treating these kids like they belong to them. In fact, I remember one nurse even adopted a child that had been abandoned. Wow. Yeah. So that really taught me, how to serve people. Those nurses embody the true definition of what it means to serve. They put their life on the line. Yeah. They invested They loved what they did. They had to love it. And so it just taught me, okay, the dedication. We all need love. Love is what brought my child through it. So it just taught me, looking at these nurses and the sacrifices they make, and then living the life that me and my wife live, life of abundance. It was, at least we could do that, contribute back to that particular cause.
Man, I know exactly where you've been. I don't know if you know my story. My wife and I had a baby who was born at 23 weeks as well.
Really?
We had twins. One of them made it 46 minutes. The other one, they gave a 3% chance. And I remember them saying, there's not a whole lot you can do when you have a baby who's smaller than a water bottle, right?
Yeah.
And man, just the helplessness, right? I mean, you bring up some good points. Like I remember feeling so helpless. Like in most of life, there's something you can fix, right? It's like, look, it's I don't like this, I'm gonna go fix it. In that, there's nothing you can do. I mean, we couldn't even, you couldn't even pick up your baby, right? I mean, you couldn't even pick them up for, 5 weeks. I think Asher was 10 weeks before I got to hold him. Robin got to hold him a little before that. I think he was 5 weeks. And man, just that helplessness, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh. But the nurses and the doctors, but the nurses in particular, man, they're the ones who got you through it.
Absolutely.
Because they're going, listen, this is going to be okay. Let me explain what that means. When you hear the beeping, I mean, like some of those things, if I go into a hospital, man, and you hear the beeping of the monitors, it brings back those memories. I mean, that just scared the crap out of you. And they would go, let me explain what that means. This is when you need to not worry about it. It's when whatever. It's amazing to see miracles. My son's also 11, so they're about the same age.
Really? Wow.
Which is amazing that we both went through that. He too really is a walking, talking miracle. And it's amazing to go through something like that and then also say, how can we help others, right? And so here at Integrity, we do our toy drive for our local hospital. I know you do a lot with St. Jude's, and you're super passionate about that. But it's really about, okay, we've been through this. And look, I think God takes you through certain moments.
That's right.
And I think it's important for you to realize those moments, and as bad as they are, to experience those, so that when you come in contact with somebody else who has struggled with that you can go, listen, I've been there. And man, it is tough.
That's right.
And let me help you through that. And that, man, I'm so sorry you guys had to go through that, because I can tell you, nobody should have to go through that. No. But it also makes you, I don't know about, I mean, for me, it made me go, man, like these nurses are amazing. They're so passionate. How do I serve people more?
That's right. That's right.
And everybody, regardless if you have a bigger baby that is, needing some extra support and they're in the NICU, man, and they're only there for a couple of days, man, those families are scared as we were, right?
That's right.
And you have to put your arm around and go, man, like we made so many good friendships and
so do we.
Connections through that.
Yeah, it's a source of encouragement. It's an interchange of encouragement when you have other parents going through the same situation. Yeah. Yeah,
and look, I mean, we're really fortunate because there's a lot of people who didn't have our story that really have gone through some real struggles or lost their babies. And that's where, we lost our son Titus. We talk about Titus a lot, where we talk about, how do we honor his memory as part of this, because, he was, a big part of that too. But man, it's amazing as you think about, I remember first time look, I mean, we sell insurance. We're in the insurance business. We sell final expense insurance. We sell, health insurance. But for me, it became also really personal when you're sitting in the hospital going, oh my gosh, is this guy going to be covered?
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember that moment?
Absolutely.
When you're sitting there like, what do I need to do to make sure that these babies are added to my insurance? And then is it going to be covered?
Absolutely.
And then that relief, that moment of relief when they say, it's all taken care of. Oh. Your insurance taken care of it.
Oh, wow.
And you have to pay your deductible. You got to pay whatever that is, but then they're like, everything else is taken care of. And man, you're like, oh, thank God.
Oh, yeah.
It gave me a whole new appreciation of what we do.
Absolutely. We provide relief to people.
Yeah.
You know, certain things they have to deal with, but at least they won't have that financial burden when we do our job. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a tough moment when you're living it. It's such a tough moment, and then you get that part of the relief where you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, that part's taken care of. Now I can focus on caring for him or her in your situation,
Absolutely.
and for your wife.
Absolutely.
And and for my parents were affected. Like everybody came around, man.
Yeah, it affected everybody. The whole family.
Yeah, but thank God for people who do what we do, and serving people and those moments to make sure they have the right coverage. Thank God for the nurses and doctors and all the common grace of medicine that allows them to do that. Because a few years ago, man, babies couldn't survive at that age.
That's
right?
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. It's been, like you say, it was a blessing, but at the same time, it made me really get serious about the type of work that I do.
Yeah.
I'm here to help people, and I want to make sure I'm 100% invested. And that's where my passion lies, particularly in the senior market. Again, they're the most vulnerable population out there, and they're the one that need the most help. So, I take it upon a personal challenge to, okay, I'm going to help every senior that I possibly can. I'm gonna do the best I can. Yeah. Just give me an opportunity to help you. And that's what I try to relate to my agent as well. We're in the people helping people business. Yeah. Yeah. And we got to let people know that. We can't be afraid of or embarrassed of what we do. We got to put it out there and wear it well because we save life.
We truly have a huge impact. And that's why I said early on that we have a lot in common, man. Listen, I'm super excited to be your partner because when you find other people like you that are really passionate about serving others, man, there's no telling what we can do together. And so that's why I'm so excited that we're now partners.
Boy, man. I am so happy joining in the Integrity Group. You just don't know. I'm like a child in the candy store, Mr. Brown.
Well, anything you need. And I hope everybody sees just the opportunity for us to even serve more people. And hopefully this inspired you today to think about just the impact that we get to have on people every day with our life, health, and wealth solutions need. And so super excited to have you join the Integrity family. I hope everybody has an amazing week. God bless you all and hope you have a great time today.